You know, one of the biggest stars in the world, really, when you think about it, was the stunning and very talented Richard Burton. But we all remember him, really, don't we, for one particular film? Well, I do, of course. Cleopatra, starring alongside his soon to be wife, the very beautiful Elizabeth Taylor. Dame Elizabeth Taylor, in fact. And what was fascinating about Richard Burton was I was lucky enough to meet him all very briefly, and it was an incredible moment, in fact, because when you're younger, meeting stars of that stature, particularly backstage at the Victoria Palace Theatre in London, where Elizabeth was appearing in The Little Foxes, of which Princess Diana came to see, well, it was just kind of exciting. You know, you never thought you were going to meet these sort of people. But what was fascinating really was the fact that, well, he could have been a bigger star a lot quicker. And even he decided that he made a big mistake. So much so that he suggested that a certain royal should have become his agent. As ever, let me explain. Morning, chums. Lovely to see you. Welcome, one and all. And of course, lovely to have your company. Are you keeping well? I'm not so bad, thank you. Yes, I know we mentioned about the chocolate biscuits the other day, and many of you have got in touch, and I mentioned about chorley cakes and stuff. It's fascinating, isn't it? When you suddenly, we all like the same things in the end. I just like all the wrong things. Have you noticed? I look at those videos sometimes, you know, where they juice all of these things. You think, very nice. They're not like a vanilla slice, though, are they? That's the thing, isn't it? In the end, you think, yeah, very nice. I'll have that. Yes, then I'll have the vanilla. Are you like me? At least we're honest. You know, I hate these people that say, oh no, I can easily just... I knew a woman once, you know, she could get a Mars bar for a week and just chop it up into little pieces. And at work, she had it in the fridge and she'd just have a tiny piece every day. So determined to just wolf it off in one, you know, the sort of thing. Why bother? If you're having one, have one, you know. Anyway, that's just me. Willpower's not my middle name, as you can imagine. Of course, stories like this I love to share with you simply because I've met and worked and, you know, sort of had long interviews and conversations with some of the wonderful greats of the golden age of movies, Hollywood, etc. Richard Burton, as I said, a terrific actor in my opinion, could have gone far more, if you like, but obviously there were certain things that held him back, and many people suspect being married to one of the world's most beautiful women sort of derailed his career. You have to remember in the early 50s he was doing quite well, started out in repertory theatre and then built into movies, appearing in things like The Sea Wife alongside none other than our very own Dame Joan Collins, who has some rather interesting memories of Richard herself, right? I'll just leave that there. But what was interesting, according to an excellent source, an older actor that I was lucky enough to interview, was Richard, in fact, decided, well, rather stupidly, to turn this particular role down. And this was a role that defined an era simply because it's a British hero, and he is a man that has gone down in history, Douglas Bader, and the brilliant movie Reach for the Sky. Remember that? Now, many people will know that this starred another wonderful British actor, Kenneth More. Right now, again, I met Kenneth More very briefly when I was very young. A wonderful guy, brilliant voice, wonderful voice, and a former Windmill boy, let me tell you. Yes, he worked at the Windmill Theatre. But what was interesting was studio bosses originally at the point decided that they wouldn't mind taking a chance, and think about this, of having Richard Burton play Douglas Bader. And apparently the reason why he turned this opportunity down, and it's a strange one when you think about it in many respects. You see, apparently Richard felt that he was more serious. He didn't want to be known as this all-action hero. He'd already done things like The Robe for 20th Century Fox over in Hollywood, you know, those sort of sword and sandal movies. However, at a film premiere in London, I always love these stories about her. The wonderful Princess Margaret Rose, well, she was having a chat with him. And she said, I've heard about this movie and I have also heard that you're not interested in taking on the role. Remember, Princess Margaret loved the world of arts, movies, all that sort of stuff. And he said, no, you know, I'm not really interested, etc. She said, well, I think you're making a huge mistake. The British public would love to see you play a very brave man like Douglas Bader. Well, as you know, he turned it down and that role went to Kenneth More. And what was interesting about that particular movie became the biggest box office movie, British film of that year, and still remains an all-time classic to this day. What's also fascinating was, a little while later, according to an excellent source, Richard Burton was there once again at a party with Princess Margaret. And apparently he went up to her and he said, you know what? I made a huge mistake turning down that role, and I think in future I should run every single script past you. And how about you becoming my agent? Apparently they both roared with laughter, and she said, I told you it would be a hit. You should have taken my advice. And each and every time Richard would say to her, and often send a note saying, did you like this? Should I have done it? What do you think? It became an in-house joke. But what a shame, of course, that Richard Burton did turn that role down. Kenneth More was spectacular and will now always be associated with that wonderful role. But it could have been so different. As ever, you didn't know that. Neil Sean, 10 Downing Street, London.